Howdy folks! Today we're going to be talking about the biopsychosocial model of managing stress. When we're faced with a stressful situation, we see the automatic response in the amygdala. The amygdala automatically thinks fight or flight. In turn, we then see both a response in the sympathetic nervous system and the prefrontal cortex. The sympathetic nervous system is responsible for the physical things that happen to our body when we're in a stressful situation. For example, you have increased heart rate, increased breathing rate, palms get sweaty, things like that. The prefrontal cortex is responsible for evaluating the emotional context of a stressful situation. The biopsychosocial model states that we can interpret that situation as a threat or as a challenge. To better demonstrate this, I'll give you an example. Anakin got a text from his good friend Luke. The text read, "Are you ready for the test tomorrow?" Anakin checked his calendar and realized that Luke was right, and they had a physics test the following day. Anakin couldn't help but feel the reaction that was happening in his brain. He had forgotten all about the test he had tomorrow. Now, according to the biopsychosocial model, Anakin's prefrontal cortex can interpret the situation in one of two ways. Successful Anakin knew what to do and took a challenge approach. He took conscious control of the situation, taking some time to slow his heart rate and breathing to the point where he could focus more. His prefrontal cortex allowed him to understand that his body's reaction was providing him with the tools to conquer the situation. Anakin took the newfound energy to plan what he should do next. Anakin called Luke and asked him to join him for a study session. Anakin then decided to make note cards from the notes his professor had provided in class. After studying with Luke for several hours, Anakin fell fast asleep. The next day, Anakin knew that he was more prepared because of the actions he had taken the previous night. He made a low A on the test, better than the average. The grade he received showed him that this was the proper way to handle similar situations. The grade served as positive reinforcement for being proactive, and Anakin learned from the experience by coping with future stressful situations in similar ways. Unsuccessful Anakin let the dread of doing poorly overcome him, pushing him into a threat avoidance approach. All he wanted to do was to escape the situation. His heart rate increased further and he was drenched in sweat. All he could think about was how angry his parents would be that he forgot to study. Anakin began to cry because he felt like no one could help him. Anakin emailed his professor and claimed that there was a family obligation he could not get out of. Anakin then fell asleep, exhausted from the panic he had gone through. In the morning, Anakin awoke to a response saying that he could have 2 extra days, but that was all. Anakin used the extra time to study. He did well on the test, and the experience served as positive reinforcement that it was okay to slack off because you could always find a way to get out of it. Unfortunately, before his last final in college, he made up an excuse so he could have more time, was given a 0, and was unable to graduate on time. That, in essence, is the biopsychosocial model. So in the future, when you're in a stressful situation, make sure you interpret it as a challenge and not as a threat. Thanks and gig 'em!